everyone, I am back. Hopefully we got our technical difficulties together. I am waiting. Oh, Carol and Heather, I didn't get a chance to say hello to you. Hi Toya, how are you? Let's see. Hi Amanda. Hi Heather, I'm back. I'm just waiting on Myrna to, we found out what was wrong. It was my fault. I didn't tell her that, thank you Heather. I didn't tell her that she needed to be on her phone. I thought I had told her that, but it was my fault. I apologize to everyone. It's my fault for the technical difficulties. Hi Terry, how are you? Hi Melissa, how are you? Hi Chris. How is little Sweet Pea doing, Toya? I'm waiting on, let me see if I can, hi Terry. Let's see if I can get, I'm working from two phones here. I'm trying to make sure we don't have any more technical difficulties. So how is everybody's Monday going? Mine started out on a good note, and hopefully once we get oh, she's so sweet. Hopefully once we get Myrna on, we'll have some definitely have a good ending to our day. I'm trying to pronounce your name, so please don't get mad at me. Last name Winterton, Miss Winterton. Is your first name Tirza? I don't want to mispronounce your name. Hi Sandrine, how are you? All right. So, as I was saying on my last video, next week we will have, the topic will be Nanny's Giving Back. Hi Kate, and our special guest will be Heather Stillwell and Karen Fancy Pants Holland. Hi Marcia. And I have something, I mentioned it in the last live that I just did. I have created this water bottle. I hope you can see it. It's for our scholarship program. You're on video. Okay, let me see if I can add. It still says I can't add. What is going on? Let me see. It still says I can't. Can you add yourself, Myrna? Because it's still not, for some reason, it's still not letting me add you on. And I am, okay, let me see. Okay, it doesn't show up over here that you're even watching. So I'm not sure what is going on with my connection, what's going on between the two of us. But let me see. Hi Tyler. Let me see if I can invite you. as okay. So I sent you an invitation. Hopefully, allow your viewers to request to join. Okay, I sent you an invitation so that you can request to join. Oh, yes, finally. Got it. Yeah, working today.
I'm officially on. Ah, Monday miracles.
I know.
Crisis
Yeah.
averted.
Okay, so truly,
Isn't that hilarious?
truly, this is a crisis. So how are you handling this?
Oh my goodness, I'm doing well. You know how well I'm doing? I'm great. I have my glass of Pinot Noir. I've got good company to watch with this evening. So it's all good.
I may need that once I'm done. This crisis, I was like, now what is,
Yeah,
how ironic is it? I'm talking to a crisis nanny and
there you
going through
go. And we're going into crisis, full-blown crisis, and we handled
crisis
ourselves.
mode. Like,
But you
that's
know, we handled it well.
yes, that's what the inside of me was doing. That panic attack is like pulling
Right?
my hair out. Yes,
There
that's
you
what the
go.
inside of me was doing. Okay, so while I have you, let me get started. So no more crisis.
There
How
you
are,
go.
tell us something about you outside of the nanny world.
Outside of the nanny world, I lead a pretty dull life. What else do I do outside of the nanny world is get together with good friends and company. And I used to entertain quite a bit before I had a kid. That's for
Oh,
sure.
well, children will, slow you down. In certain ways, in certain areas, should I say, they'll
Right,
slow you down,
right.
or they will change the way you do things and how you operate. So, so you like entertaining.
I do. I love entertaining. I used to do quite a bit. If I were to be in another career, I think I would have probably gone into the restaurant business or gone
Oh,
into culinary world. I love everything to do with that sort of interest. So yeah, I would have definitely done that. But I used to do quite a bit of cooking and dinner parties and theme stuff. I had quite an active role there. But
wow.
I
See,
still enjoy that, and I incorporate it in my travel. I certainly am cooking now with my family, and so we are all enjoying that quite a bit.
oh, good, good, good. See, cooking is my outlet. My husband doesn't understand that. He's like, "Oh, were you cooking again?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm cooking again." Well, what you gonna do with it? I'm gonna freeze it so I can have it for lunch. But I do. I cook as my outlet. That's my thing to get my mind off of whatever it is that I'm going through. That's my yeah. So tell us, what is okay? I lost her. Okay.
I'm
I
back.
I
Just
have no.
like that. Bam. Off 1 minute, back again.
Okay,
Just
I
wanted
have
to
no idea
let you
what's
experience
going
a
on.
secondary crisis again.
Yes, a crisis. Okay, so tell me what a crisis nanny is, because I think I'm gonna need one.
It's just, by definition, they often say, "Hello, Toya." That a crisis is a kind of almost a time period in life that just stands apart from your normal everyday flow. You have a certain situation that kind of comes along where your family is in flux, where they need some extra help and assistance and support. And so a crisis interventionist or crisis nanny, as myself, comes in, works with this family while they're at their peak of a very, difficult or challenging situation. And then I bring the family back to a sense of calm and stability. And then I go on into my next situation or scenario. So, crisis nanny, ironically, was not my choice in doing. It was really something that have always said I've been, led to this profession and led to this specific niche because I have just found in family after family, they would come up against some amazing, unbelievable odds. And
Wow.
I worked well with those families in those situations to the point that that became my own niche of specialization, and to the point that I decided to get some more spaghetti behind my name and go get some master degrees and other fine-tuned training so that I could specialize with that and continue to make myself very marketable in the nanny world. And it's proven me very, very well. It's done me quite a lot of good.
Great, great, great.
Hi,
So,
Lou.
how do you find the families, or do they find you?
Well, at this point in time, I've been doing this in the DC area for well over, 10, 15 years. I would say that most families are referred to me. They find out about the kind of work that I do, or by accident bump into a situation where I think that I might be able to assist them. And what I mean by crisis, I'm talking about situations like divorce, adoption issues, crisis with medical illness and so forth. And so many different things can happen in your family that can cause an immediate crisis. Sometimes it's a sudden loss. Sometimes it's one that isn't, necessarily it's a planned, unfortunate loss where they may be dealing with a family member that's had a long-term illness. So it's been really, really fun to kind of see that people are coming to me and calling on me to assist them when their families are in need like this. So I am also a therapist, so I do some office intervention, but I also do sometimes some home-based situations.
Okay.
And even so much it's not necessarily the parents that may be in crisis. Sometimes it's just the child. There may be a behavioral problem that has gotten to the point that a child needs intervention beyond just their regular therapy sessions day in and day out. So I come in and kind of do like that nanny 911 thing and kind of bust up in the house and set up a situation, and say, hey, let's see what's really going on here. Why is there such a crisis going on in the household? So help kind of
Okay.
get that all sorted. Hi,
Yeah.
Court.
Hi,
Believe it or
everyone.
not, there's
It's
even some of
Beth.
my old babies and some of my original fams are watching us right now. It's so so sweet to
Also,
see.
one said, "Hi, Mama."
Yeah, yeah,
Leah said,
yeah,
"Hi, Mama."
yeah.
So, tell us, what does it take to be
Mm,
a crisis nanny? I know you said you add some more spaghetti, or alphabet, as I like to call them, behind your name. So, what does
right.
it take to be a crisis nanny?
I think you have to be chosen for this work. I really do. You kind of understand, I think, first and foremost, what it's like to be in crisis. I think you have to have had some good life and living skill to see yourself in that situation and be able to have and create the depth of empathy that you need to have to be able to carry forward with doing this sort of work. You have to have nerves of steel to handle
I'm
situations
sure.
where you are, definitely put up against some challenge. You may have to also have a great deal of patience, a good ear for listening, and a lot of love and compassion inside of you. So some of these skills are obviously just come from within, Others
Right.
are trainable. You can acquire those skills over time. I think that it's a very viable way of making a real difference in a family's life.
Okay. Now,
Mhm.
I'd like to think that I have nerves of steel sometimes,
You do.
but but I've been in several crisis situations,
Hmm.
but it's like after it's all over, said and done, and I know that person is okay.
Hmm.
And mine are not long term. Mine are like temporary. This may last an hour or so, and then I get them their help they need, and then I
Right.
I just break down crying as if it
Sure.
happened to me. So I'm thinking to myself, well, that doesn't sound like nerves of steel. It's like I can help you, and I hold it
Yes.
together, and then once it's over with, I'm a mess.
Right.
So
Right.
I
Well,
don't.
that
I
means that you're human.
promise. Oh well, that's good because I
Right.
was gonna say that being a crisis nanny is probably not for me. I have
Mm.
a calling. I like the infants and toddlers,
Hmm.
and you can handle certain things, and I'm sure that you have been through things that we couldn't even dream of. Tell us one of the hardest things that you have had to deal with as a crisis nanny without going into details.
Yeah, that's
Basic.
what's challenging. Oh, I mean, when you go in to someone's sanctuary, their home, and you
Mhm.
see people in pain, struggling, going through some suffering, it's really difficult to suspend yourself and be neutral in what's going on. Sometimes I'm diffusing, an escalating behavior or situation with a child or maybe an adult who's having a hard moment, and or sometimes there's tensions between family members. So
Mhm.
I'm describing a variety of different things that have been really difficult, in the sense that I've had to really suspend myself and be just really calm and level to be able to get through whatever's going through so that everyone is heard, and then I can de-escalate the crisis that's happening if it's an imminent, real immediate situation. Those are always a little more tense or difficult to deal with than something that's just an ongoing crisis that's been happening for some time. So I'm very protective of my clients and try to retain their privacy. So I can't really go into
Right.
anything that's too specific, but it is oftentimes in many ways just as you described, Angela. You get in there, you're dealing with this crisis, a child who's throwing chairs or flinging things, or you may have a parent that's really having a really bad moment, or you're in the middle of a messy divorce and parents are on each sides of things, just really filling your head with a lot of things. And you got
Right.
to stay neutral. And I always maintain one primary goal. I am here for these kids. Every single last one of these children
There it is.
that have been in my care for the last 25 plus years are all my babies. And I try to maintain that calm and that neutrality for them. So it does not really matter to me to have to choose a side. I'm on that kid's side. Even that kid who is raging out and acting violently, that's a child that's in pain. And I'm going to get to that source of that pain and help them to bring it to a level where they can communicate and express it in an appropriate way so that they can then have some more success in their home life and in their school life or wherever it may be. So, yes, I can leave those places and walk out that door at my time off, and then I can take a big exhale, and I might have a drink of wine, or I may have my hands shaking, going like, "Oh my gosh, I made it through." That's just being human. I mean, I don't come in without any sense of absorption of all the difficulty that I experience and witness all the time. There's a lot of pain that is experienced. You have to be human to be able to say, I understand and know that that person has gone through a real experience that they're feeling and sensing, and you are going to take on some of that. but you have to know what to do with it and how to let it go appropriately so that you can move forward and let that be that individual's work. And that's the real difference of what makes somebody good at handling this work as a crisis nanny. I do believe that most every nanny has experienced at least one job. If she's a career nanny, she's had at least one or two jobs that have had tremendous crisis inside. So
Oh,
I can only imagine.
yes, yes. So tell me, I know you say you have a glass of wine.
Yeah.
Um, what are the ways that you de-stress, that you just call,
Hmm.
what is your go-to? Okay, because mine is cooking. Even
Hmm.
at my nanny kid's house, eh, I'll cook dinner early. If I'm stressed, I'll cook dinner early and it's like 12 o'clock and dinner's not until 5. I will start cooking or preparing or chopping or whatever
Hmm.
just to get mellow out and just kind
Right.
of just get my woosah moment in.
That's right.
What's your go-to?
Oh, I have my Fab Four or five core rock solid girlfriends that I can pick up the phone and call at any moment if I'm really, really having a moment and I need to purge immediately. On the professional level, I have a mentor. I've had a mentor for over 20 plus years, a mentor supervisor that helps oversee and helps me stay in check with what I'm doing therapeutically with the family and care. And that has been always a good check in point because it is after a while over time you really understand that this is their work. Have you ever heard the phrase their circus, not my monkeys, not my circus?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it boils down to that. It really is, it's their work, it is their stuff. They're going to continue to travel through their journey. I'm here to be a support, an assistant, a referral aid, but I can't solve it or fix it for them. I only give them the tools and the support to help them along the ways while they are going through it and helping themselves to get to the places of answer that they need. So I use that
Okay.
as a support system for myself. I also take walks. I mean, exercise used to be a wonderful, wonderful outlet for me. I need to do more of that. I don't have
Me
the
too.
same bandwidth that I used to have. I mean, I definitely, since becoming wife and mother, have a lot less time on my hands to just kind of go about enjoying a long leisurely workout or an intense one where I'm really getting all that sort of energy out from being absorbed within my day. So I do the best I can, but it's always a work in progress to do better.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Because I was just saying today, you got to do better. You got to go walking. You got to do something. But it's just
yeah,
been so cold here, and I'm just like, I hate going out in the cold. I like being outside,
really.
but I hate being out in the cold. And I used to
Right.
live in DC, so I'm
Well,
just like,
Angela,
oh,
I love the cold. Wait till you're perimenopausal, girlfriend. You're gonna love some cold weather. I do not resist like it as much
well.
as I used to.
I'm already there, and I get hot, and I'm like, okay. And my husband's like, "What's wrong with you?" I said, "Personal summer. Trust me, just personal summer. That's all I want to say. Personal summer." And I just fan myself, and, and
Right.
it comes at the most inconvenient times. I'm like, really now? Seriously? Yeah. So, but I still hate cold weather.
I
I'm gonna
know.
say
I
it every now
know.
and then, but I hate cold weather.
Yeah,
So
that brisk walk outside is, I don't know, it does me a lot of good. I don't mind it at all.
yeah.
So, I'll walk at any time that there's an opportunity because I always have a little person kind of chirping in my ear. So it's like the only time you can kind of really refocus and recenter and be still. You just kind of
Yeah.
can hear your own voice instead of Myrna, 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 Myrna. I'm like,
Come
if
on,
I
let's
get called
go.
one more time. Yeah, yeah. So that's not a bad thing to do. I certainly wish I could say I was, really good at writing out all these different feelings and different things. No, I don't do too much of that. I think my go-to is relationship. I have really solid people that I've known for a very, very long time that I can trust with certain situations that I'm dealing with without giving any, too much information of what's going on.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. We all need that friend that we can call up and just I just need to yell. I just need to
Hmm.
scream. Just let me let it out,
Hmm.
and then I'll. Okay. Libby
Yeah, I
said,
see.
"Is there any tips on the best way to help an
Hmm.
explosive child calm down while they are having an outburst in a positive way, or a way that you found they best respond to in general?"
Hmm. Um, I really, when I have that explosive child that's just really reactive, first, I kind of make sure I scan the environment and make sure that child is safe so that they are able to express themselves and their feelings in a way that they're not going to do harm to themselves or to others. That's primary. But aside from that, I kind of do like using and utilizing sport casting. You keep calling out. I see you're really frustrated out there. You're really having a hard time, buddy. I can tell you're very, very upset about us not being able to go outside later on today, whatever it may be. Kind of validating and naming some of the feelings around what you're seeing and experiencing with that child. If it's just a redundancy where they're going on and on just for, say, attention's sake, I would then say that I can invite them to their special space. Why don't you go to your room and have some quiet time and calm down time while I know that you're frustrated or angry, and that kind of is just a matter of fact. It's not a judgment that I'm placing on this child. Oh, you're having a fit again, or what's wrong with you, or any of these things that demean or diminish their real feelings in that moment. But it is a way that they can have a way and a space to go and calm down. Some children need that energy outlet, whether
Yeah.
it's a punching pillow or something that is a place where they can kind of just get all that fidgety energy out of them, jumping up and down on a trampoline or something of that sort. All of those things are super helpful to help calm down that explosive child when they're having an outburst. So those are all ways that I found that are best to de-escalate the situation, kind of neutralize it, nip it in the bud, and then once things are calmed down, we can go back and talk and get the lesson in of why there was a situation in the first place.
Okay. I always tell my kids,
Hmm.
it's okay if you're angry. It's okay to be angry. It's not okay to hurt your friends. It's not okay to hurt you. How
Hmm.
about do you remember those big blow up clowns that stand about yay tall?
Yeah, yeah.
You had when we didn't have the pumps to blow up. I bought several of those for children that were tend to get angry easily, and
Hmm.
I would tell them, okay, it's okay for you to be angry. I understand you're angry. How about you go and use your punching clown and get all that
Hmm.
anger out? And that helps. When they get it all
Absolutely.
out, work it all out, it's like all of that
Hmm.
adrenaline and all that whatever that angry juice in them just kind of comes out. And sometimes when I notice that they're just doing it just to get attention, I
Right.
will walk away. I said, okay, when you're done, I'll be over here and you can join us. When you calm down and you're
Hmm.
done, we'll be over here. And that's when I kind of use the time. If I'm taking care of two children at one time, I'll
Hmm.
bring out something special like, the balloons or whatever.
Right.
And that
Right.
usually nips it in the bud.
Right.
Oh, you play.
Something else for them to put their focus and attention on. That's life is still going to continue on. I really like for kids to see the world's not going to fall apart because you're upset or angry or that you're having a feeling, but life is going to move on, particularly for my kids in crisis who have either experienced a lot of trauma in their lives or they're seeing a lot of painful, really big things happening in their homes.
Hmm.
When they see that, the world's not going to stop and drop just because you're in the middle of having a temper tantrum, or you're really having big feelings about something, and they've learned to in some ways manipulate that for cries of attention. Said, I am happy to continue, talking with you or to play with you, but I'm going to be over here doing this. When you have calmed down enough for us to have a real heart to heart discussion, then we may talk. That's when I'm going to engage you. That's when you're going to get the most of my attention, not when you're at a 10, but when you've
Right,
gone back down and calmed down. So those are
right,
very helpful. And I have found that oftentimes my families in crisis don't necessarily have an inability to see what's going wrong in their lives or with the child, or even if themselves. But what they have a difficult time seeing is having a lens where they can kind of filter through, is this BS or not? Is what my child doing really fooling me? I've gotten to such a place where I feel so sorry for them because they're going through this terrible divorce, or their parent is dying, or somebody is really sick. We have to be able to look at that picture and say, no matter what is happening, I'm going to normalize for you. You know what? You have a really tough situation going on. Everyone has struggles and difficult things. So when you normalize it for them and help them to see, but we still have to use these tools and these methods to encourage positive, normal reactions and responses to things in our world and our environment. And that's probably where I have the greatest gift in ability of giving my family, the sense of normalizing emotions and feelings, fears, even trauma, and also helping them still feel empowered to say, but yet I still will have a house that runs well. I will still have a space where there is respect, and a place where we are all going to encourage mutual feelings of rapport and consideration and care. I think that's probably one of the best things that I can do to offer a family that's going through a crisis.
good. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That was some good, good information. Now, Melissa wants to know: do you travel for crisis jobs, or do you find them locally to you?
Not anymore. I've been, like I said, since motherhood, the last 4 years, I primarily work in the DMV area. I do consultations with people over the phone that are out of town per se, but no, by and large, the bulk of my work is in the DMV area. And really and truly, my crisis work began since I was back south in North Carolina. So there's always situations that would lend itself to you to do well if you want to specialize as a crisis care interventionist. I really think that I've had several families ask me, "Do you have another nanny that you know of that could help my family? My family is going through a similar crisis or situation." And I've been asked so many times. There just aren't that many nannies who also piggyback and have the therapy background or the
Right.
psychology degree, or the interest in that type of work. But there is a strong need for it. I will say that. And many of the local agencies that you have in your area are always looking for a really special nanny. They may phrase it as, an extra special nanny is needed to work in this sort of situation, or a particular family structure. And you have to have the ability to work with very difficult situations that are happening to you. So I think there's definitely a role for it to specialize in this niche yourself. It's done me incredibly well for well over 10, 15 years. I'm well above the average industry norms for our salary ranges. People have asked me, how do you do this? How do you work like this? It requires a lot. It requires a lot of you. Um, Alyssa's asking me an excellent question. She's asking, how long do I typically stay with the family before moving on? I like staying with families for as long as I am needed. It's almost like the Nanny McPhee. When you no longer need me, then I will no longer be there. But I stay with the family for as long as I'm needed. Probably looking for at this hour. But
That the Nanny McPhee.
yeah, this yeah, on average 2 to 4 years, I'd say, sometimes longer, depending on the situation. Um, but the longer that you stay with a family that's in crisis, the more continuity and stability that you can lend the situation. So it's always a good idea for you. I think it's one of the best reasons why we do what we do as career nannies is staying with our families as long as possible, because the longer that children have us in their us as caregivers and intermediaries in their life, what a blessing and a gift that you're going to be able to offer that child, so, or children in care.
Now, do you work with more than one family at a time, or just
Hmm.
one?
Hmm. I do, and again, they're in different capacities. As a
Okay.
crisis nanny, that would be in one role, as a therapist in another dimension, in a different role. I am now also entering the footsteps of being a postpartum doula. And so I'm very, very excited about doing that work. It has been an exciting venture and a lot of excitement to help, again, struggling mothers who are in their beginning stages of work, of trying to figure out their family and the exhaustion and the physical demand behind it. So it's been a natural fit for me to go towards some of that work. I'm just trying to keep myself relevant as I'm aging up in this work.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
it's been a good way to kind of cultivate the career so it's never stale or boring for me.
Yes. Some of my roles, I have kind of
Mhm.
just been, the children have been born into them, should I
Right.
say? Um, Having children, being a night nanny,
Mhm.
NCS. Now, the NCS training, I don't have that, but I
Mhm.
do have the night nanny and have done pretty much everything and taking care of
Mhm.
the umbilical cord and taking care of the babies and
Mhm.
sleep training, all of that I have done. Postpartum doula, especially the moms that I've had um, over the last 7 or 8 years that have had babies, and it's very difficult, and you have to know the signs. But I
Mhm.
was glad that I knew them before and what their personalities were like before, so that I would notice something's not quite right. Um, what's going on? And they feel comfortable with me and talking to
Sure.
me. And I tell them, okay, you need some alone time. You need some me time. Call your girlfriends, call your support group, go have some fun. But I feel guilty. Don't feel guilty. The baby
Right.
is fine, because they have is this, each parent is different and each
Mhm.
anxiety is different. So you have to know who you're dealing with. You have to know that person in order to tell them, I understand how you feel. And being a parent helps because you've experienced probably some of those same feelings. So being a parent, kind of helps me a lot in
Mhm.
my nanny field, in the
Right.
nanny, some of the roles that I have just kind of just been just taken through.
Sure.
It's not the training but it's the compassion, it's the heart, it's the instincts. It basically is God. It's taking me through,
Mhm.
some of the things that I've been through. But
Mhm.
so tell me.
I wanted to
It's
respond. I wanted to respond for a moment. I see there's a young lady named Emily, and I'm so
oh
thrilled to see she would love to be a crisis care nanny herself, having worked as a behavior specialist for severely emotionally handicapped or disturbed teenagers in group homes. And I really do believe that there is a profession to be carved out of this niche of nannyhood. We have travel nannies, we have newborn care specialists, we have all these different types that are starting to branch out and have more clarity around them. I would love to see that there be curriculum developed sometime and maybe presented at the INA in the future or something like Nanny Palooza down the road, where there is a place and space to train up other individuals who are like Emily that would like to do this work, who enjoy it. There's an adrenaline rush for me behind this type of work. There's an engagement of my brain space that I love. I'm never bored. Then no 2 days are ever the same. Those things were important to me than the monotony of what a typical day-to-day nanny would maybe encounter. I needed just a little bit more challenge. And I think there is a viable route for you to take that. You can start with your community college courses or university courses, anything psychologically related, child development related, anything about family systems and theory are going to be really relevant in helping you to advance your, you know, your use of ability to take care of and nurture a family in this situation. Often the other piece of this work is engaging yourself in being a consultant and a true team member with the parents that you're working with to help stabilize the situation for them and for their children. So you are doing quite a bit of consulting, sometimes referring periodicals or different things for them to consider in their approach, or you're training them and using positive, methods or techniques to improve the situation at hand. So I think it's very much well worth considering. So way to go, Emily. If you'd love to talk further about it, I'd be happy to help navigate you through that some more.
Yes, Emily's good. Emily's good.
Mhm.
She's here in Dallas too. She's good.
Okay.
Yeah, I've talked to her about her uh, uh, criminal justice
Hmm.
degree and her behavioral specialist. See, I've taken child psychology, but
Hmm.
that's nothing compared. And I had to do three case studies on children, but that was nothing compared to what you do.
Hmm.
And um, I'm also certified in special education, so it kind of gives me an edge of working with special needs children. But I so enjoy the infants and toddlers.
Right.
So that's where I stick.
That's where you're sticking with.
And I love twins.
Hmm.
I just do.
Hmm.
I love twins. I call myself the twin nanny sometimes, but I
Right.
love twins. So I stick with where I am. But Emily, it's good. She's very good. And yes, Emily, I think you should talk to Myrna. I think she can, kind of lead you and guide you through the ins and outs of where you want to go.
There anyone else that has any questions
Yeah.
for me or thoughts that they wanted to ask? What is it like, or what are you doing with this? Because I'm winding down to my last few moments, and then it's back to self-care again with my glass of Pinot and so forth. So, I'd be happy to talk with some more.
Okay. Michelle said, what are your limits, boundaries of how far you will go with the situation outside of sending a child keeps coming after yourself, family? Okay. I can't read the rest of this.
With object or fist, or more
Okay.
psychologically help. Wow. Okay. So first and foremost, as anything with HIPAA, which is the guiding principle or guidelines around what you are allowing in or out of the therapeutic space, is always a duty to maintain no harm, duty for no harm, and to respectfully keep yourself safe. You owe that to yourself. You owe that to the situation, as well as to the people and the individuals that you're working with. So my limits and boundaries are very clear. Anything comes up, flashes up, or whatever it may be, it immediately will need to be taken care of. Either I'm able to, if it's a child that I'm dealing with that may have grabbed some sort of threatening object, I am trying to, you know, judge myself in that space, making sure that I can gain access to that child and quickly disarm them and get them to a place of safety. I'm immediately alerting their parents. We're working with a team sometimes with a therapeutic team. There are sometimes certain steps that I'm utilizing for holding that child in a lockdown position, per se, if they're have a lot of trouble with self-regulation. So that is incredibly important to have that in place. So there really isn't a sense of allowing. I have heard of nannies that have had um, individuals that children have harmed them or hit them, or other things have occurred to them that were outside of the scope of what we allow in a professional working situation. And I would immediately say, shut that down. You need to nip that behavior in the bud. There is no way that I'm coming back for a second day to allow a child or an adult lay their hands on me and for there not to be some sort of action to go against. And I even include that in speaking very loudly or yelling or being cursed out. You may have one moment or one time where that might have happened, but trust it will not occur again. So that is not the situation for me. So that's my limit and that's my boundary, and I keep that clear so that you do have, in some sense, a position of power to say, I am here to help and assist, but I'm not going to allow myself to be treated in a way that's inappropriate. So I hope that that is helpful to you, Michelle, of how far you would go with the situation, because it's not very far at all. That's where you should be with that. And if you need some assistance with helping to garner that sort of respect or boundary in your work situation, I'm happy to help you with that as well.
Okay. Great, great,
Oh,
great.
oh, I'm glad you're not in that situation, Michelle. She just wrote to say, I'm not in this situation, but that's the worst thing that I can imagine. Yeah, it is pretty difficult to work through and to be in, but it's not the norm. It is very rare that those situations get to that point. So.
Oh, okay. She said she's found that there are a lot of experiences that we go through as
Mhm.
nannies that aren't taught in school.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, as I said last week, being a nanny and being in school is two different trainings.
Hmm.
Having an early childhood education is wonderful, but I realized that my education and being a nanny, they're two different worlds.
Hmm.
The classroom and at-home situations, two different worlds.
Hmm.
And we need to get more training as nannies on situations. What happens, because in school it's a totally different environment. At
Hmm.
home they feel more comfortable to do things that they wouldn't do at school. So yeah,
Oh my
it's
goodness, yes. Angela, you have hit one of the pivotal reasons why I still continue home-based interventions. For that reason, I can get a family to come into family counseling in the office setting, and everyone is buttoned up and appropriate and calm, and nothing is really being purged out as to why this family is having so many difficulties. But in the home, you cannot hide. You cannot mask things that aren't there. You are more authentic, more real, and that's where I like to see the work done, because then you're yielding better results for the long haul. And a lot of what I do really comes from the gut. It's your instinct. It's what you're good at. It's the reason why the majority of the people I associate with, we are career nannies doing this sort of work, because you know that you have a passion and a devotion to helping families be better than they were before you left. So if you are good at it, if you have the instinct, if you have the drive, if you're not afraid when you hear trauma, divorce, whatever, blended families and adoption and special needs and learning disorders and mood disorders, And that kind of makes you say, hey, that person's got a kind of a colorful way of looking at life. There's a lot of things that they have interesting that make their life very rich and experience. I want to still work with them. That's what works. That's what works. And
Yeah.
that's where you're going to be able to be your best for that family, because you can only be authentically you. If you aren't in that place where you can really be yourself and speak your mind and do your work where it really represents and shines what you're about, then you will not be able to affect the kind of change. And I really believe that strongly.
So true. So true.
Hmm.
Be you. Be the best you be.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I hope that some of you will be inspired to become crisis nannies, or even just a little more present and a little more involved with the children in your care, because they need us. And there are so many families. We're not even touching or scraping the surface of what we really could do to impact change. So outside of my nanny work, outside of my therapeutic work, outside of my postpartum doula work, or whatever newborn care specialization work I may be advising, I also always check myself to give back and do some volunteering and things that make an impact of change that are non-monetary gain, because there are just that many families and situations in need. So that's what feeds me. That's what inspires me. That's what helps me continue to do the sort of things that I do, is kind of keeping checks and balance in order. And so I stay humble that I've been gifted to be allowed in families' lives that are allowing themselves to trust that I'm here to honor their trust, their vulnerabilities, and to respect that I'm here to help them and not judge them. So if you're able to do some of those things, then I think you'd be great as a crisis care nanny as well.
Yes. Give back. Give back.
Mhm.
It's not all about the paycheck every time. Give back. It's so rewarding when you are able to help a family that would not otherwise be able to afford your services, or not even just you but anybody. It's so important
Mhm.
to, like you said, Myrna, to get those checks and balances,
Right.
because I just feel a whole lot better when I'm able to help, when I'm able to give, when I'm able to, because I'm a nurturer and a giver by nature. And
Mhm.
when I can't give, it's like it closes up something inside of me. And my dad always tells me, "You're gonna get the shirt off your back." I said, "Well, it'll just be the shirt off my back. I'll find another one. God will make
Mhm.
a way." So, but this from the man who would do the same thing. So he understands.
Mhm.
But yes, ladies, give back. It is so important that you give back, not just keep it all to yourself. Give back. Um, are there
Yeah,
any
really.
when
I see a really good question that comes up a lot. I want to acknowledge Miss Libby and her question about
yeah,
recommending
it
help
just
to
popped up on
parents.
my
Okay.
yes.
Um, how do you go about talking to the parents that you advocate for a child in a way that a parent will respond? If you are at the beginning, I'll tell it to you in two ways. If you're at the beginning of your working relationship with a family, I would suggest that you always put in writing in your contract, your work agreement, that you are going to have regular, routine check-ins, physical meetings where you and the parents are working out and talking about issues that are happening with the children and in the home. So, yes, Libby, you would want to make sure that you either are setting up a meeting to talk with them. And in the meantime, while you're having that suspicion of concern, I've seen situations where nannies are concerned. I'm thinking maybe that my child might be on the spectrum. Maybe, something along the Asperger's or autism spectrum. Sometimes there are nannies who are concerned about a developmental delay. The child's not quite talking at the place or space that they should be, or an occupational therapist might be recommended for something. One of the first things I tell you to do is to start being like a researcher. Start graphing and writing out instances where you see specific instance, so that you are objective in what you're saying of what you're looking at. I noticed that when we went on a lunch outing with little Becky's friends, 2-year-old friends, that she wasn't speaking in nearly the rate of her peers who were, sharing and exchanging their little their lunchtime foods with each other. Most of the time, our little Becky used cues, visual cues, or she just pointed at things or just muttered. Then, on another instance, in school, she had a meltdown on Thursday because she couldn't express or explain to me what she wanted to do next. So that gave a very specific instance in where that you're giving these parents almost a pictorial view of what you're seeing with the child. And so it's not just, oh, I'm just kind of seeing that she's often delayed in her speech. That's not going to garner support. They're going to immediately put the walls up and feel defensive in that instance. But if you're giving them those specific examples, then they may be more open. Couple those instances with specific lists or articles that support what you're trying to share with them on information and some of the interventions that may be helpful. Some of the things that have made a difference with speech is playing some of these speech games. Can we start doing some of this work with her? Or maybe perhaps we should have her evaluated with, this in the spring, they're doing the next speech assessment. Well, can we maybe consider having her looked at that time if we don't see a significant growth or development in that child's speech or their development? So that way you're always a collaborator. You're sharing ideas with them, you're exchanging information, but ultimately leaving that decision up to them in a non-threatening way. And I think that's probably one of the most positive ways that you're going to get them to sign on with you. But if you have that relationship set up like that from the beginning, it goes a lot better. So that would
Yeah.
be my recommendation.
I remember when I worked for Early Head Start, we had to do anecdotal notes on
Mhm,
each child every day. And even now, as a nanny, I keep a log. So if I notice something, uh, that the child, her head jerks to the right when this happens,
mhm,
her head jerks to the left when this happens, or anything that is a milestone,
mhm,
anything that is a growth milestone, or anything that is out of the norm, or just anything that concerns me, I write it down as an observer and not as a, well, she said, and I told her,
mhm,
and I write it down as an observer. And it's a different way of writing when you write as an observer than when
mhm.
you write down, well, she just wasn't minding me today, or she just had an attitude today. Well,
Right.
what attitude did she have? What is going on that makes you want to write that she had an attitude today? Describe what she's doing. It's more of a description than a narrative of what
Right.
you think is going on. So that way, I've had parents take those logs to the doctor. So the doctor reads and says, okay, so this is what might be going on with your child based on the notes
Mhm,
that you have here. It
mhm,
helps the doctor out, it helps the parents out. So it may be something seriously going on, but if you don't take those notes and if you don't write as an
mhm.
observer, it's a totally different,
Right.
scenario when it comes to helping
Absolutely.
the child.
It really is. For some reason, we don't necessarily take this in consideration, but let me tell you, I had a nanny for my son, and when you feel those shoes of what it's like to be on the parent side as well as the employee, as the nanny, parents are just wired to be defensive and protective of their babies, and they see us sometimes as judging them or judging their child, So if you can be that observer, be neutral, be impartial in the way that you express the things that you have actively observed with the child, keeping your daily logs or your weekly logs up to date, you're going to be that much more effective in being able to come to them and say, I have a concern and I wanted to share that with you. And here are some of the things that I'm seeing. And that way they're not going to be like, oh, this is just something you're just picking up overnight. This is something you've been logging and observing over a continuum of time. And they may
Right.
not hear you or appear to hear you the first time, but they definitely have. It will if you continue to bring that forward to them, in over time. And one of the things I've noticed strongly is that when I suspended and let go of the notion of being let go or fired, I then became a whole other level of caregiver and nanny. So I am very big on being authentic and true to myself and my truth and what I see. But if
Right.
I'm afraid that I'm going to lose my job because I am speaking the truth about what I genuinely see professionally in a child or in the home, then that's just not the job for me. And once I
Right.
let that standard of expectation go, it it was liberating. I tell my parents I am incredibly blunt to a fault. I am respectful. I am definitely, generous in being very, very kind in how I express the thought of what I'm seeing or observing, but I will not hide that truth from them because that will then hinder the progress that that parent or that child needs to make.
Right. So right. So right. So right.
Couple more
Uh,
things.
anything?
No.
Uh, I'm looking back. I'm looking back to see if
Yeah.
because you get the messages before I do.
Oh, I
So
do.
as you get them and you're reading them, they're just popping up on this side. There's a
Mhm.
delay. So
No
you get
worries.
to see them and everybody else gets to see them. And I'm like, okay, I
Huh?
don't see that. Where is that? So yes.
No
Uh,
worries. No worries.
I
But
don't
I
see
am going to have to wrap up with you here very
okay.
shortly. I've got a few more things to get done this evening.
Okay. I need you to scroll back up and
Hmm.
let's see. Scroll back up 10 comments
Okay.
and, and give me a name so I can write it down. This is Valentine's week, and
Oh,
I have a giveaway for three special people.
okay. You want me to give you the name?
Give me the name of the 10th person that you scroll there up back up to.
I I hope that was perfectly scrolled up, but I apologize if it wasn't. I have a Melissa Pritchard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Melissa Peter.
One. Uh-oh, a couple people popping up now new. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine. Yeah, and I think actually it was well, now that I had a couple more people pop up, I had Libby Klein, Melissa Pritchard. How many more up should I go?
One more.
Um, oh, this is hard. You want to just give me a number? Give me a number.
Go up 20 more.
20 more. One. Oh, goodness. It is too late at night for me to be counting this many people up. Phew. Um, oh my goodness. Some of them are some of my former charges. I am just so touched and so, so happy to see them in their young adult lives. They are thriving and doing well, and I could not be more proud of them. Let's see, Miss Toya Windsor.
All right, Toya. Okay, now go back down five. I need one last
Okay,
one.
one, two, three, four, five. Haley Jane Smith.
One more time. Kate.
Haley She's local. She's one of my DC good girlfriends. Haley Jane Smith.
Haley
Did you get the name?
Jane Smith. Okay.
Yes. Haley.
Now I need Melissa
Mhm.
Pritchard, Toya Windsor, and Haley Jane Smith to private message me or contact me on either on this video or on my personal page.
Mhm.
You have just won a water bottle.
Ooh.
It says it's a sisterhood thing. It's Ask the Nanny water bottle. And for
Yes.
those of you who join us late, these water bottles, I commissioned them so that because I'm starting a scholarship program for nannies so that more nannies can get training at the conferences, at the INA, the International Nanny Training Day, and the Nanny Palooza, and any other of the nanny conferences that come up. Um, these bottles for a $35 donation, you get one of these bottles, but the proceeds from these bottles go into a scholarship fund to help other nannies get more.
Yay.
So it's nannies giving back. It's a sisterhood thing, nanny village uniting, all that good stuff.
Awesome.
So,
Awesome.
and it is metal, and it has a straw inside, and it flips so that you can, okay, it screws to the inside so the seal is tight, and you just flip it out and you drink, flip it back in, and there's the handle.
I'm not going to say you can put other beverages in that
Oh yes,
wonderful water bottle as well. So
well,
that's just
and
my thinking, my self-care.
yeah, yeah, whatever you want to put in there. I'm not gonna say go there, but whatever you want to
There
put in
you
there.
go.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Myrna, for all the wonderful
Oh,
information.
you're welcome.
Ladies, if you would like to be more information about being a crisis nanny,
Reach out.
please contact her. I know we all go through crisis, you know, in our what we feel is crisis in our everyday nanny, and I won't say every day, but through our nanny jobs, we all have crisis. But Myrna specializes in true crisis intervention with families. She's a crisis nanny. She's a therapist. And what else do you do? A
Postpartum doula.
little bit of everything.
Hey, you got to keep yourself relevant.
I know postpartum doula
Yeah.
and probably been NCS and a few other
Yep.
things.
Yep.
So, yeah,
NCS Newborn Care Solutions is that's my go-to. Yep.
yes. So get with her. And if any of these things interest you, get with her and get more information as to how you can become a specialized nanny like she is.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you all for watching. And I have the names of the young ladies who received the bottles. And next week we will have Nanny's Giving Back. That's our subject for next week. Nanny's Giving Back with Heather Stillwell and Karen Fancy Pants Holland. So we will see you next week. And next week you can find out ways that you can give back to your
All
nanny
right.
sister. All right. And thank you,
Thanks, Dana.
everyone. Have a good night.
Good night. Thank you, Angela.
Good night.